Emily always sat near the back of the classroom, quietly observing the world around her. She wasn't among the popular kids, didn't have a loud laugh or flashy style that drew attention, but then there was him. His name was James. He had this effortless charm, always smiling, always talking to someone, helping classmates with homework or carrying someone's books without being asked. Emily didn't know why her heart started racing whenever he looked in her direction, or why her thoughts kept circling back to him long after class ended. She told herself it was just admiration at first, nothing more. But deep down, she couldn't deny the tiny spark that had somehow taken root in her chest the moment she first noticed him. Over the next few weeks, Emily found herself noticing James in small, quiet ways. The way he tucked his hair behind his ear when he was thinking. The way he laughed, not loudly, but in a way that seemed to light up the corners of the classroom. The way he asked the shyest students for their opinions, making them feel seen. Emily's chest tightened every time he walked past her desk. She caught herself doodling his name in the margins of her notebook, tracing the letters over and over. She didn't dare tell anyone, not her friends, not her older sister, because even admitting it to herself felt dangerous, like letting a secret escape into the air. She wasn't ready for anyone to know that her quiet admiration had begun to feel like something more, a tender, nervous hope that maybe, just maybe, James could notice her too. Emily started finding excuses to be near James whenever she could. In the library, she would linger near the table where he always studied, pretending to search for a book while sneaking glances at him. In the hallway, she timed her steps so she could walk just behind him, hearing his voice carry in casual conversation with friends. Every small interaction, even the briefest brush of shoulders or a shared laugh over a silly joke, sent her heart racing. She cherished them more than she wanted to admit. Yet, at the same time, a quiet fear lingered. What if he never noticed her the way she noticed him? It was a delicate balance, hope and fear, excitement and anxiety, that seemed to define every moment Emily spent thinking about James. The more she tried to stay invisible, the more impossible it became to ignore the feelings growing inside her. One chilly morning, Emily finally found herself standing next to James by his locker. Her backpack felt impossibly heavy on her shoulders, and her fingers fidgeted with the zipper as she rehearsed what she might say. "Hey, do you know when the math homework is due?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. James looked up, his expression open and friendly, as if the world had slowed down for a moment. "Yeah, it's due Friday. Did you need help with it?" Emily felt a small thrill, a spark of connection she had only imagined before. "Maybe just one question," she admitted, and he smiled, stepping aside to let her see his notebook. It wasn't a grand confession or a dramatic moment, but for Emily, it was the first bridge between her quiet admiration and something real, a conversation where James actually noticed her, where her presence mattered even just a little. After that first conversation, Emily found herself looking forward to every chance encounter with James. In class, she would catch glimpses of him scribbling notes, and sometimes he'd glance up and give a quick nod or a smile that made her stomach flutter. In the cafeteria, she lingered near the table where he sat with his friends, laughing quietly at the jokes she only half understood but loved just because he laughed. Every interaction, no matter how small, became a treasure. Emily started leaving little notes in her notebook, scribbling down things he said or moments she didn't want to forget. She even began noticing the tiny habits that made him human. How he chewed the end of his pencil when he was thinking, how he tapped his foot to the rhythm of an unheard song. Her feelings were growing in ways she hadn't expected. They weren't just a crush anymore. They were threads of something tender and hopeful, something that made even the ordinary moments of school feel alive with possibility. Emily's heart began to beat faster at the thought of actually talking to James outside of class. Every little interaction now carried weight, a glance, a question, a shared joke. She started imagining what it would be like if he really knew her, not just the quiet girl in the back of the classroom, but her. At night, she replayed conversations in her mind, analyzing every word, every expression, wondering if she seemed interesting, funny, or just invisible. The thought of confessing even the tiniest part of her feelings made her stomach twist with nerves. What if he didn't feel the same way? What if it ruined the comfortable rhythm they had already begun to share? And yet, amidst the fear, a quiet hope persisted. A hope that maybe, just maybe, James could see her, really see her, and maybe feel a spark in return. It was a delicate mix of longing and anxiety, one that made each day feel like walking on the edge of something fragile and beautiful. One afternoon, Emily stayed after class to finish an assignment. She noticed James still at his desk, scribbling in his notebook with a focused expression. Gathering courage, she approached him quietly. "Hey, do you mind if I borrow your notes from yesterday? I think I missed a few things," she asked, trying to sound casual. James looked up, surprised but smiling warmly. "Sure, no problem," he said, handing them over. "Want to sit together while you go through them?" Her heart leapt. Sitting next to him, Emily felt the world narrow down to just the two of them. They talked softly about the homework, but soon the conversation drifted to music, favorite movies, and the little awkward moments of school life. For the first time, Emily felt like she wasn't just observing him from afar. She was part of his world, even if only in a small way. That day, walking home afterward, Emily's chest was full of warmth. She realized that sometimes closeness wasn't about grand gestures. It was in these quiet, shared moments that hearts could start to connect. As the days passed, Emily became acutely aware of how much space James occupied in her thoughts. Even the smallest thing, a message he sent in class chat, a joke he whispered to a friend, made her heart flutter. She started noticing patterns, the way he tilted his head when he was thinking, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about something he loved. Emily also realized that she laughed more, smiled more, and even walked a little taller when she knew she might see him. Her friends began teasing her gently, noticing her distracted glances toward James during lunch or hallways. But Emily could only smile awkwardly, unable to explain the quiet, persistent pull she felt. It was becoming clearer with every day. This wasn't just a passing crush. It was something deeper, something tender and sincere. And with that realization came a new challenge. How could she show James that she cared without making things awkward or pushing too fast? Emily began finding small, careful ways to let James know she noticed him. She laughed a little louder at his jokes, lingered a moment longer when they said goodbye, and sometimes left a sticky note on his desk with a friendly message, hoping he would see it without making it feel too forward. She also started paying attention to the little things he liked, his favorite snacks from the cafeteria, the books he borrowed from the library, and found excuses to mention them in conversation. Each time he responded with a smile or a "thanks, I didn't notice that," her heart skipped a beat. It was delicate work, balancing her feelings and her shyness. Every gesture had to be subtle enough not to scare him away, but meaningful enough to let him see that he mattered to her. And with each small success, Emily felt a growing sense of courage and a deepening connection that made every day feel brighter. One rainy afternoon, Emily and James found themselves waiting under the same shelter at the school entrance. The sky was gray, the drizzle soft, and for the first time, Emily felt an unusual calm. "I didn't think it would rain today," James said, shaking his umbrella and smiling at her. "Me neither," Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. They stood side by side in silence for a few moments, sharing the quiet rhythm of raindrops and the soft hum of distant traffic. Emily felt a strange sense of closeness, a feeling that went beyond casual friendship. It was in the small space they shared, the simple comfort of being near him, that her hope quietly grew. Maybe, she thought, there could be something more than admiration here. Maybe James could feel it too. That night, Emily lay in bed, replaying the afternoon with James over and over in her mind. Every detail felt sharper. The way his hair fell across his forehead, the easy way he shifted his umbrella so she wouldn't get wet, the quiet smile that lingered even as he spoke. She started imagining what-if scenarios. What if she told him how she felt? What if he smiled and said he liked her too? What if they could sit together every day, not just in class, but in the library, in the hallways, in those little shared moments that had already become precious to her? And then, just as quickly, fear crept in. What if it ruined everything? What if he laughed, or worse, didn't feel the same way at all? Her chest tightened at the thought. Yet, amidst the worry, a quiet, stubborn hope persisted. Emily realized that these feelings, as frightening as they were, had grown too strong to ignore. Over the next few days, Emily found herself thinking about how she could tell James how she felt without scaring him away. She imagined little scenarios, handing him a note, slipping a message in the class chat, or just saying the words softly after school. Each idea made her stomach twist with a mix of excitement and anxiety. During lunch, she watched him from across the cafeteria, noticing how naturally he laughed with his friends, how genuine he seemed. The thought of telling him her feelings felt both thrilling and terrifying. What if he didn't feel the same way? What if their friendship changed forever? Still, she couldn't deny the urge to try. Her heart insisted that some things were worth the risk. And so, Emily started carrying the courage she didn't know she had, like a fragile secret in her chest, waiting for the right moment to let it out. A few days later, during a group project in class, Emily found herself sitting next to James. Her hands felt clammy, and her heart raced like it never had before. She wanted to say something, anything, that would let him know she cared, but the words stuck in her throat. Finally, as he passed her a pencil she had dropped, she whispered, "Thanks, you always notice the little things." James looked at her with a small, curious smile. "Of course," he said casually, not realizing the weight behind her words. Emily felt a tiny thrill inside. It wasn't a confession, not yet, but it was a start, a small crack in the wall between them, a subtle way of letting him see that he mattered to her in more than just a friendly way. That night, she smiled to herself, realizing that sometimes, even the smallest hint could carry the biggest meaning. After that small moment, Emily began feeling braver around James. She laughed a little more freely at his jokes, joined in conversations with him and his friends, and even started sharing little thoughts or stories from her day. Each time he responded with genuine interest or a warm smile, her confidence grew. She still felt nervous, of course. Her heart raced whenever she imagined telling him everything. But the fear was slowly being replaced by hope. Emily realized that being near him, talking to him, and letting herself be seen in small ways mattered just as much as a full confession. For the first time, she began to believe that maybe her feelings weren't just one-sided. Maybe, in these quiet moments, James was noticing her too. And that thought, fragile as it was, made her feel lighter, almost as if the weight of her secret crush was starting to lift. One afternoon, Emily stayed after school to finish a drawing for art class. She was so absorbed in her work that she didn't notice James quietly sitting at the table across from her, sketching his own ideas. "Hey, that looks really good," he said suddenly, nodding toward her paper. Emily jumped slightly, her face warming. "Oh, thanks," she murmured, smiling shyly. James leaned closer to look at her drawing. "You have a really good eye for detail. I wish I could draw like that," he said genuinely. For a few minutes, they worked side by side in silence, sharing the quiet space and occasional smiles. Emily felt a sense of comfort she hadn't realized she'd been craving. The simple joy of being near him, of being noticed, and of having someone who appreciated her for who she was. As she packed her things to leave, Emily's heart felt full. That day, she realized that love didn't have to be dramatic to matter. Sometimes, it was in these small, quiet moments that connection grew strongest. That evening, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the quiet moments she and James had shared. She imagined walking down the hallway together, laughing at silly jokes, or studying side by side in the library. She pictured sharing secrets, trading notes, and even helping each other through stressful school days. Her heart fluttered at the thought of holding his hand, of hearing him say her name in a way that felt personal, intimate, and genuine. These daydreams weren't just wishful thinking. They were a reflection of the hope growing steadily inside her. And yet, she also knew she had to be patient. James was her friend first, someone who already mattered to her deeply. Emily realized that love could be both thrilling and gentle, and that the most meaningful connections often began slowly, with trust and small acts of care. The next week, Emily decided to take a small step. During lunch, she slid into the bench next to James, trying to act casual as her heart hammered in her chest. "So, are you going to the school play this Friday?" she asked, her voice barely above the noise of the cafeteria. James glanced at her, smiling. "Yeah, I was thinking about it. Are you?" Emily nodded quickly. "Yeah, I thought it might be fun to go together, maybe." She wished she could disappear into her backpack the moment the words left her mouth. James's smile widened, warm and easy. "Sure, that sounds great," he said. The simple, enthusiastic way he agreed made Emily's chest feel light. It wasn't a confession, not yet, but it was a small risk, a way to let him know she wanted to spend time with him outside of class. And for Emily, it felt like the most courageous thing she had ever done. By Friday, Emily could hardly focus in class. Her mind kept drifting to the evening ahead, the school play and the chance to sit beside James, laugh with him, and share something just between the two of them. When they finally met in the auditorium, Emily's nervousness melted a little at the sight of his easy smile. They found seats next to each other, and for the first time, Emily felt like she belonged not just beside him, but with him in that small, shared space. During the performance, they whispered comments to each other, laughed softly, and exchanged glances that lingered just a little too long. Each small gesture felt monumental to Emily, a quiet proof that her feelings weren't invisible, that connection could grow in the gentlest ways. By the end of the night, walking home together under the glow of streetlights, Emily felt something inside her shift. Hope had blossomed into something real, and she realized that love could be quiet, patient, and still breathtaking all at once. After the school play, Emily felt a new sense of courage. Seeing James laugh, hearing him speak just to her, and sharing those quiet moments had given her the confidence she had been lacking. She realized that if she wanted to take their friendship further, she couldn't keep her feelings locked away forever. One afternoon, as they walked home together, Emily took a deep breath. "James, I really like spending time with you," she said softly, her voice trembling a little. I think I like you more than just as a friend." James stopped and looked at her, his expression a mix of surprise and warmth. Then he smiled, a smile that made Emily's heart soar. "Emily, I like you too," he said simply, as if it had been waiting for both of them all along. Relief, joy, and a rush of happiness washed over her. The fear of rejection, the anxiety, the endless daydreaming, all of it had led to this perfect, quiet moment of truth. From that day on, Emily and James were no longer just friends. They were something more, a tender, young love built on quiet moments, shared laughter, and the courage to speak their hearts. For Emily, it wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about connection, trust, and the small, meaningful ways they showed they cared for each other every day. Looking back, Emily realized how much she had grown through this journey. She had learned to notice the little things, to value patience, and to take risks, even small ones, when her heart told her it mattered. She also understood that love didn't have to be overwhelming or all-consuming to be real. Sometimes, it was the gentle, consistent presence of someone who saw you, accepted you, and made ordinary days feel extraordinary. And as she walked through the school halls with James by her side, Emily smiled quietly to herself. She had discovered that the most beautiful beginnings often start quietly, softly, and with courage carried in the smallest of steps.